Hi, welcome to my writing activities for the Royal Voluntary Services Virtual Village Hall. I'm Alison Mott and I'm a writer and writing coach, and I'm putting together a series of activities to encourage you to be creative during this time that we're having to stay at home. In my activities, I'll be giving writing prompts and reading pieces of text by myself and other writers on different themes, hopefully to spark your imagination and give you ideas for pieces of writing you could do yourself. And those pieces of writing can be in any form. You might want to write memories and true stories from your own life. You might want to make up stories or write poems or limericks, whatever you like. There's no expectation on the kind of pieces of writing that you produce following the prompts that I give. Now, many people have hang-ups about their writing, and this is often because of things that have been said to them in the past. That could be about the physical act of writing, their handwriting, spelling or grammar, or about the way we put words together and whether our writing is good enough. Please don't let those things worry you here. This is just a fun activity to be creative for an hour or two, and no one's going to judge the pieces of work that you write. In fact, you don't even need to show them to anyone if you don't want to, although you may surprise yourself and really like the pieces that you write and want to share them with others. And there'll be information at the end of the activity about how you can do that. But for now, you'll need paper and a pen. So if you're ready, let's write. The writing prompts I'm going to give today are about ourselves, or in effect about you. And I'm going to kick off with a quick activity about names. Names are very important to us. They're part of our identity. They are cultural. They set us in a particular place in time. So if you think about the name, somebody who might be called Constance, and what that would say about when she was born and what type of person that she was, as opposed to the name Tegan, which is a very modern name. You would imagine that Constance would be an old lady, Tegan would be somebody who was born in recent times. Although a lot of traditional names in the British cultural tradition are universal and are making a comeback. You think there are lots of Mollys, Millies and Lilies and Freds and Harrys around in Britain, certainly at the moment. Think about how we feel when people get our names wrong, and whether we have nicknames. Do you have nicknames in your family, with a group of friends? So names are very important to who we are and who we are with different people, particular people. The Washington Post in 2010 said, "A person's name is the greatest connection to their own identity and individuality. Some might say the most important word in the world to a person. It's the one way to easily get someone's attention, a sign of courtesy and a way of recognising them." So, your name is very important to you. Is there a story about how you got it? Were you named after somebody, family member, or your parents' friend? Have you got a name that's been handed down through the generations? Is it a family name that's been handed down through the generations? Do you have a nickname? Is there a story about what you might have been called if, for instance, you were born a different gender? So my name's Alison, and I was going to be called Paul if I was a boy. And then I was called Alison, and then that meant that another member of the family who also wanted to name their daughter Alison couldn't, because my mum beat them to it. Were you named after a character, a television character? My own mother was named after a character that my grandmother read in a book. So, lots and lots of different stories. And I had a nickname. My family nickname was Ash, which my siblings had discovered that my initials spelt a word, and that was the name I was given. But only family members are allowed to use it, and if anybody else has ever tried to use it without permission, I've been very cross about it. So several stories about my own name, and I feel very strongly about it. In a minute I'm going to ask you to pause the video and write the story of your name. Now, it only needs to be an anecdote. You don't need to write more than a paragraph, 2 at most. at this point, it's to get you to think about your own identity and to begin to record some of your stories. So I'm going to ask you not to overthink the subject. Don't worry about writing in full sentences and worrying about your grammar. Lean into the creativity. The idea is that for a short period of time, and I would suggest no more than 10 minutes, you sit and you let whatever ideas come out of your brain flow through your pen and onto the paper. And this can take, if it's not something you're used to doing, it can take a little while, and we can keep stopping ourselves and trying to edit what we're writing. Try not to do that. It's a different side of the brain that you're using editing, and you come out of creativity and go into the analytical side of your brain, which halts you. So for these activities, I'm wanting you to practice going with the flow, stream of consciousness, just getting anything down on the paper and being comfortable with the scribblings that you're recording on bits of paper. No one's going to look at them. And the fantastic thing is that the more you get used to doing this and not editing yourself and not being critical of what you're writing and just doing it, the easier it becomes to do. And it is mining gold. The more you relax into it and allow yourself to go deep into the well of your creativity, the more golden nuggets come up onto the page. And then you've got something to work with afterwards that you will edit and neaten up and make into a satisfying piece of text. We'll be doing that later, right at the end of all the activities. So for now, this is to practice stream of consciousness. So pause this film. Spend 5 to 10 minutes telling a story about your name and how you got it. How did that go? Did you manage to get a story down about your name? I hope that you enjoyed that and that it's warmed up your creative writing muscles ready for the next bit. So in this next bit, I'm going to ask you to generate a list of facts about yourself. And lists like this are an excellent way to begin a piece of creative writing from a standing start. And once you've pulled out all the ideas about a topic, you can expand some of those ideas into a separate piece of text. So very often you can tidy up the list itself and it can become a poem in its own right. So again, as you're writing, I'm going to ask you to try not to overthink, just to relax and lean into the creativity and the writing and let what comes out of your imagination go straight down on the paper. Scribbling is fine, go with the flow, don't self-edit, keep going until your allocated time's up. Talking of time, a really good trick that I use ever such a lot and sounds really naff, but isn't, is to use a timer. And it can be a timer on your phone or like this, a kitchen timer. This cost me about £1.50, I think, and it's got a really good tick. And there's nothing like a ticking clock next to you to stop you overthinking, because it induces a false sense of panic in you, and you've got to get the piece that you're working on done and out the way before the timer rings. So that's a really good trick, which, as I say, does sound as if it's not going to work, but it does. I still use it a lot to this day. Very good. So if you can get yourself a timer, and again, I would say 7 to 10 minutes should be enough. But if you find that when the 10 minutes are up, you've still got lots of ideas you want to put on the list, just carry on. But these things often come to their own natural end when you kind of know after a while how long is your length of time for scribbling away. Stream of consciousness, I keep saying that phrase, it's getting annoying now. Just whatever comes out of your head, keep noting them down. And there's some science behind this, that when you first start to generate ideas for anything, you initially come up with old ideas that you've used before. Your brain's saying, these have worked before, let's pop these in. So Your first 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 ideas will maybe nothing special, run of the mill. So the idea is that the more that you get down, the more nuggets of gold begin to come up from deep in your creative well. So 10 ideas are okay, good, they're workable. 20 ideas are even better. And if you can work up to getting 30 ideas, at which point you're beginning to come up with just really silly ideas towards the end, what you think are really silly, then that's fab. And often I have found that the best poems, the best pieces of work that I've worked up into something have come from the last 10 ideas, which, as I'm writing them down just because I need to write something, I have considered to be really silly. Really silly ideas are often really, really creative. The more you write, the deeper you go into the well, the more memories that come up that you had forgotten that you'd remembered. It's like sending someone deep into the filing cabinets at the back of your head and seeing the forgotten memos that have been filed in there. You get very unusual and interesting things. Okay, so let's get on with this. I'm going to ask you shortly to pause the video and to work for 7 to 10 minutes with a timer if you've got one. But before we do that, I want to prompt you with some questions of the kind of things you could be thinking about. So close your eyes if this helps. The kind of things, questions. What roles do you have in your family? So for instance, for me that would be mother, sister, daughter, friend. So, roles in your childhood family. What roles do you have now as an adult in your adult family, in the wider community? What job do you do? What roles do you have in your job? Are you a member of any clubs or societies where you have a role and an interest? You can list your interests also, things that you like to do. Are you a member of a faith community? And how would you ascribe yourself? What would you say you were within that community? What does that community mean to you? Do you have any hobbies that are important to you? Are you a lover of knitting, for instance? Or, for me, books. I am surrounded by books. Are you a painter or a dancer or a musician? What makes your heart sing that you would say was a core part of who you are? And are there any other facets of yourself that are important to you, important enough in your day-to-day life that you would like to list, you think are worth listing on this record of who you are? And finally, what might friends and families say that you were? If you were to ask them, might they say you're a good friend, or kind, or helpful? We might not like to write these things down about ourselves, but they need recording. So imagine what another person might say about you, someone in third person might say about you. So if you had your eyes closed, you can open them now. When you begin your writing, it can help to have a sentence starter, and one that I've used quite a lot for this activity is I am. I am, or I can. And sometimes I am not. I am this, but I am not this. Or I am this, and I am no longer this. Right, so set yourself a 10-minute timer if you have one, pause the video, pick up your pen and begin to write those ideas. How did you do? Did you find that easy or difficult? I hope you've managed to generate a good list of facts about yourself, but don't worry too much if you haven't. It's just a rough activity and you can add to it as you go along, as you're working them into another piece. As I said before, the piece that you work it into is entirely up to you, whatever you fancy doing. But I'm going to read a couple of poems that I have here, which might give you some ideas of things that you can do. Having the sentence starter is really helpful in helping you to work your random ideas into a poem, particularly. And as I said before, sometimes having a sentence starter and then a comparison with it, the opposite to it. So I am, but I am not. That is another a good technique for working ideas up into a tight, shareable piece of writing. So I have some here. This is one that a child wrote for me in a school, James. And I like the way that James has repeated part of this poem to tighten his pattern. And he also grouped some of the ideas that he generated to be like with like, which is quite a clever thing to do with your writing. I am James, little brother, chatty cousin, silly son. I am James, mathematician extraordinaire, pancake gobbler, orange juice chugger. I am James, cricket captain, swimming champion, football fan. I am James. Now in this one, this is by Sam, and Sam hasn't used repetition, but she's pretty much kept to the list as she generated it. Some of these lines are just one word. So I am Sam. I am a mother of two, a wife, daughter, a bubbly person, 5 foot tall. I am British, Bangla, friendly, emotional, kind and hard-working. I am Sam. Here's one by Liz. And Liz has written a kenning, which is an Anglo-Saxon type of poetry with 2 words in each line, and one is a noun and one is a verb usually. So I am a happy singer, doggy walker, messy cooker, couch potato, funny wonder. So here's the poem that I wrote, and I was trying to use the I am but I'm not to as a device. So here we go. I am Alison, one of 8 children, a mother, a sister, an aunt and a friend. No longer a daughter, an orphan now, sadly. Half Londoner, half Yorkshire, of Viking descent. Not a morning person, not naturally punctual. Allergic to gluten, but a lover of tea. I am Alison. Welcome to me. And in the final type of poem, I was thinking of an acrostic. People are often familiar with acrostics from having done them at school, and that's where you take a word and you write it vertically down the margin, and you use the first letter on each line to begin a new word and a line of poetry. So, and I've written this as third person, as if someone else is saying it about me rather than saying it myself. Alison, always smiling, rarely sad. Loves chocolate and cake, unfortunately. Isn't afraid to show emotion. Seldom loses her temper, though occasionally perhaps she should. Numerous friends, very lucky. Now, if you didn't want to write a poem, you could take one of the ideas from your list, or several of the ideas grouped together, and write a piece of prose, a paragraph or 2 that could be an anecdote or a story, a memory from your past, whatever you wanted to write. Or you could have a go at several different types of writing from the scribbled notes that you generated from the ideas. Try different styles and see which you like. You might surprise yourself. You might try something that you didn't think you'd like and you do. So pause the film here. Take as long as you like to work on these pieces of text, and good luck. They will be first drafts. Don't overthink them, but See if you can work them up into a good first draft. See you later. So the final activity I've got for you is called Compass Point, and it's a piece in 4 parts which focuses on 4 different places that you've been to in your life. And it works well as a piece of poetry with 4 stanzas, but you can also write it as a piece of prose with 4 paragraphs. It's quite prescriptive, but don't let that worry you, because actually that is it's quite easy to do. If you follow the instructions, you will get a good piece of text out of this. So grab a piece of paper and a pen. I'm going to give you the instructions now, and then I'm going to read you some examples. Okay? So you need to choose 4 places that you've been to in your life, 4 significant places. And you need to jot them in the order that you first visited them, spaced out across your page. So you may well have been back to these places again, but think of the first time that you went, maybe a childhood holiday or not. So the first place that you visited, and then a space, the second, and then a space, then the third, and then the 4th towards the bottom of the page. Now, the second line on each stanza or paragraph is going to be why and how you went there. Why and how you first went to that place, what took you there. The next line under each place, the third line under each place, will be a physical description of that place the last time you went there. Physical description of the place the last time you went there, what it was like. And the 4th line will be, if you were suddenly transported back there now, what would you feel? How would you feel? And that's it. The first paragraph will begin, to my north is, and then the name of the place. The second stanza or paragraph will be to my south is. The third will be to my east is. And the 4th will be to my west. And just to make that clearer to you, I'm going to read you 2 examples by ladies from my writing groups. So the first one is Jeanette. And Jeanette has written a very tight poem. She's taken out pared it right back to the bones of the facts that she needs to share in this. South, to the Odeon cinema, to escape the humdrum life, for the joys of Hollywood and glamour, to see Mamma Mia too. Very happy. West, to my garden, to escape into the outdoors and enjoy the flowers, to tidy the veg patch, contented. North, to Spain, for the joy of the country. Last with my husband to recover from an operation. Now, like happiness, filling me. East to India, my spiritual home, for rest and peace, to see old friends, happy. So that was Jeanette's poem. Jean has written one which is longer paragraphs but works equally. Here we go. So, to my north is Beeston, Nottingham. I went there with my father to visit my gran, on the bus, later in Dad's car. Beeston is a small town in the Midlands where British Telecom was born, and one of the few railway stations that Beeching closed but reopened. Now I would be lost, as so much has been modernised and has an excellent tram system. There's more antisocial behaviour than there used to be, and I might feel a bit threatened. To my south is Bakewell, where I lived as a child. It's a delightful hub in the middle of Derbyshire, but now has so many tourists that it's hard to park, shop and move around. I wouldn't know anyone there now. East is Paris. Went at 16 to run away with a broken heart. Stayed 2 years. Fantastic architecture, skyline, language, culture, everything. Love it and would be happy there forever. So there are 2 examples of what you could do with the compass point, but you can change it as you wish. You don't have to stick to the pattern. That's one of the things about creative writing. The rules in it are there to be broken. So pause the video, have a go, give yourself a good chunk of time on this one. See how you go. So that's the end of my writing prompts for you. You should now have 3 pieces of rough first drafts from the prompts that I've given you, and I hope you've enjoyed writing them. If you want to, you can go back and work on them with your editing side of your brain and tidy them into pieces that you might like to share. We'll talk a little bit about editing on the next video, but if you would like to, please feel free to share the pieces that you've written. The Royal Voluntary Services are creating a Facebook page where we'll be able to share and chat about the things that you've written. Or if you want to, record yourself reading them as a sound file or as a video like I'm doing, and send them to us that way instead, if you don't want to share your written pieces. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you, how you got on, what you think of the activities, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Thank you. Happy writing.